Global Affairs Analyst Calvin Dack joins me on the news from Washington, D.C. via Skype to discuss the latest development. Good to have you join us, Calvin Dack.
Be here.
So we're hearing from a senior Hamas official who says, look, they're expecting ceasefire in a day or two. But according to the Israeli Prime Minister, he's determined to continue until calm and security is returned to Israeli citizens. What does this tell you about the prospect of a ceasefire anytime soon?
Well, a couple of things. One is that, you can take what the Hamas official said about it coming, in a day or two with a grain of salt. Also, with Prime Minister Netanyahu, as he does always, present this unrelenting strongman persona. So he's not going to relent until there is a ceasefire. So I wouldn't read in too much to that. But the 2 points that I think are important once you factor those things in are, one, in this country, we've had a lot of criticism of the Biden administration from within the Democratic Party because President Biden hasn't been seen as being strong enough against this violence and against Israel to de-escalate. But the Biden administration's response has been, we are going to do this in back channel, I think they said private diplomacy. Well, as you know, probably that the United States blocked the UN Security Council resolution that would have called for a ceasefire. And it could be that maybe the private backroom diplomacy is working. And then the last point on that is I'll say, I think that looking for a ceasefire is kind of like putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. Yes, it will solve the immediate violence, but does nothing to address the root causes of why a ceasefire has been needed over the last 2-3 decades.
And it's interesting you mentioned the Biden's administration's reaction to this. I want to take a comment from Bernie Sanders, who is also a Democratic lawmaker. And he said, I think the function of where we should be is we should be bringing people together and not just being on one side and saying that everything that Israel does is good. I want to get your reaction to that because it does seem that that's the reaction of the U.S. government at times where it says, look, everything that Israel does is good.
Well, I think that there are a lot of interesting things about that statement from Bernie Sanders, who is Jewish. Also, you have the new senator from Georgia, John Ossoff, who is also Jewish, calling, with making remarks similarly along those lines. And like I said, there's a growing call from the Democrats to get Biden to be stronger. What I think is also interesting is that I was seeing yesterday, I believe, they were doing polling, and that evangelical Christians are more percentage-wise supportive of what Israel is doing politically, Netanyahu, than American Jews. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
So he also said, and I'm talking about Bernie Sanders, he talked about the fact that there has to be some sort of solution that brings dignity to Palestinians and safety to Israelis. But the challenge here is what sort of comprehensive conflict resolution options are available?
Well, I think one of the things that Senator Sanders is referring to is that it's been, for a while, the kind of mainstay position of the United States and many in the international community of a two-state solution. And so I think that's still the goal. However, with what Benjamin Netanyahu is doing, not just with, this current situation, how he's responding to Hamas, but other actions, he's making a two-state solution even more difficult. So I think that's what Bernie Sanders is referring to. And I think he realizes that if the two-state solution gets off the table, then we have gone backwards, not forwards, in resolving it.
And that's in the long term. But in the short term, we understand that the German foreign minister, Heiko Maas, is right now in that region trying to mediate for a ceasefire. He has spoken to the Israeli government and will be talking to Hamas or anyone who represents Palestine anytime soon. But the question is, what sort of influence is the EU bringing to the table that can lead to any form of ceasefire?
Well, I think there's a lot that the EU countries can do. However, I don't think that they will go too far out of step with what the United States does. Now, what is also different now than, say, last year at this time is we have a president who is willing to work and listen to our European allies in ways that Donald Trump was not willing to do. So what I can say is that I think Europe will be less inclined to challenge the Biden administration. And I think that anything they do will reflect understandings that the EU has with the United States. And that refers once again to this kind of back channel private diplomacy happening.
It almost seems like a situation where everyone is trying something out until something good happens. Global Affairs Analyst Calvin Dark, thanks for talking to us as always.
Thank you.